Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have breaking news coming from inside of the Kerch Strait, as we've been able to hear that a 1,100 kilogram explosive was detonated by the armed forces of Ukraine today under the structure of the bridge, causing significant damage, while the armed forces of Ukraine has also declared that this is the first explosion of its type to happen on the bridge, possibly suggesting that there are more explosives that have been planted in hard-to-find places along the course of the bridge that may be detonated here within the near future. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear of ongoing air raids against the entirety of Crimea, as air defense has been active over Feodosia, and we've also been able to hear of air defense activity at the Belbek airfield, also inside of Crimea as well. We have also been able to hear of other major news around the world, as we are now hearing that the United States' official position on the nuclearization of the Islamic Republic of Iran is that Iran will not contain or possess any abilities to enrich uranium products of any kind, way, shape, or form, pretty much meaning that all the negotiations up to this point have been completely moot, as we are now not going to be allowing the Islamic Republic of Iran any ability to enrich uranium. So far, the negotiations have been on to what percent of the enrichment could they produce. Meanwhile, the People's Republic of China has also been, according to Ukrainian intelligence, supplying military equipment to Russian factories for them to be able to produce into final informed Russian equipment, largely meaning in Ukraine's sense that the People's Republic of China is openly supporting the war against the state of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation has also seen, just north of Nizhny Novgorod in the city of Zavolozhye, that a major explosion and fire has occurred at one of their largest automotive manufacturing plants, while at the same time in Moscow, we've been able to hear that Ukrainian armed forces were able to knock out 41 aircraft out of the attacks that occurred just a few days ago on all of the Russian air bases throughout the Russian Federation that were housing strategic bombers and also other forms of aviation essentials for the Russian strategic deterrence, as well as a large amount of other facilities that were also hit as well, which it appears that the submarine based at Severomorsk may have actually been hit by a Ukrainian attack. We've also been able to hear inside of Moscow that the commander of the Russian Air Force died, unfortunately, today after falling out of a window. Quite literally, that was the excuse. And also, Zelensky has been invited to the NATO Summit. We have a pretty big amount of news, as y'all can tell, and these are just the big blanket statement parts, but we're going to be getting into that news piece by piece. And moving us on down into the Kerch Strait, we have been able to hear that once again, the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to do what has been considered the impossible and have detonated a 1,100 kilogram explosive directly on one of the pillars of the Kerch Bridge. The Kerch Bridge is a significant structure that connects the Crimean Peninsula to the mainland of the Russian Federation. Throughout the course of history, there has never been an actual way, or an ability more so, for the Russian Federation to physically connect itself to the area of Crimea, except for through the land bridge in southern Ukraine, considering that most times that the Russian Federation controlled Crimea in their history, they also controlled significant swaths of Ukraine. However, a bridge was never constructed in this area until around 2015 to 2016, when construction originally began on this bridge. This bridge was opened in 2018 to 2019 in full, both the road and railroad bridge segments, and since then, the Ukrainian state has declared that this has been an illegal structure, considering that it is violating the national sovereignty of the state of Ukraine and their holding on Crimea, and the fact that this bridge is technically an illegal attempt to try and say that there is a physical land connection between the Russian Federation and Crimea, which has never existed in this way, shape, or form for literally thousands of years. However, the state of Ukraine has gone out of their way throughout the course of the war to be able to try and strike and destroy this bridge, and we have seen that while attacks against the bridge have been very small in form and amount over about the past year, it does appear that today's was wildly successful. And let me bring y'all to the video. This is the video of the actual explosion that hit one of the pillars of the Kerch Bridge. From what we can tell, this is a road bridge segment, which we can see right here. It has a wider base to the bridge. We can also see the railroad bridge right over here with a smaller, more narrow base to its bridge pillars. But we can see here some of those bridge pillars being blown up by a 1,100 kilogram explosive, which is absolutely massive. It is around about 2,500 to 3,000 pounds of explosives that was detonated directly onto this pillar. And so here's the clip. And there was the explosion right there. And we can see debris raining down. We can then see what appears to be the possible vehicle that was used to bring the explosive to the area. It is believed that it was some sort of an underwater submersible drone that the state of Ukraine was operating. And we actually have a short video of this drone in operation right here. We can see that it can actually be towed around by trailer, and once it's dropped into the water, they can slide the drone right off of its cradle, right into the water, and immediately start operating it. We now see them conducting some tests of the torpedo-style drone. And we see here the drone continuing to be tested out by the Ukrainians. And once again, we do not know if this is the exact drone that was used. Once again, at this point, the SBU hasn't even really put out too much information about the actual way they planted the explosives. All that they have said is that these explosives were actually planted in the earlier part of 2025 and have actually been sitting on the bridge for months at this point, completely undetected by the Russians, who conduct regular scans and screenings of the bridge's structure, and apparently they weren't able to find it. So it may have been the fact that this drone was used to plant the explosives, or it may have been that Ukrainian operatives physically went to the bridge and somehow planted explosives onto it. We were able to see more information showing us the explosion once more in this video, but most importantly, the damage that was actually caused at the very top of the bridge, which we can see several people standing around the bridge. Some debris from the bottom of the bridge is now on the actual road frame, and it appears that, at least from what we can tell right now, this entire area of traffic, or at least 2 lanes of the Crimean Bridge, have been pretty much completely wiped out at this point from the explosion, because the pillar has destabilized this entire span of the section. This is also an attack that's going to be a lot more damaging than any kind of a surface attack on the actual road structure of the bridge. The pillars are incredibly important to maintaining the actual cohesive structure and holding up the weight of the traffic that is crossing overhead. While road structures can be hit on the upper end of the bridge, they can be replaced easily. Pillars, on the other hand, really cannot be replaced all too easily. You pretty much will have to go and replace the entire road segment above it and the pillar, which could take a significant amount of time, meaning that the Ukrainians strategized on this attack that they wanted the bridge to be brought out of action as long as they possibly could, and for that reason, we can now see that they were able to destroy one of the pillars instead of the actual road surface on the top of the bridge, and this will be putting it down for repair times for an even longer period of time. We were able to hear that there were secondary explosions that were occurring at the Kerch Bridge, although we never saw video and picture evidence for this. It does appear that they could be corroborated, as the Russians kept the bridge down and out of traffic for hours, as it appears that they were trying to figure out where the initial explosion came from, assessing the damage on that one, and also trying to figure out if there were any secondary explosions and where those may have originated from and what kind of damage they could have caused. The bridge was open for traffic apparently a few hours later once again, but we have been able to hear that apparently it's going to be a limited amount of road traffic and only on the one side of the highway that was not directly affected by the explosion. So, unfortunately, we do not know what side of the bridge the explosion actually occurred on, but only 2 out of the 4 lanes of the Crimean Bridge are now going to be operational at this point, meaning in a large part that the logistical capacity of the bridge has been halved, at least for the road segment. The railroad bridge has still not been directly hit in any way, shape, or form throughout the course of the entirety of the war, and it is still remaining at 100% capacity and efficiency, at least at this time. We have also been able to hear that this has caused a little bit more of a stir in the Russian government. It seems as though they are quite pissed. 41 Russian bombers were lost, and not only that, the Kerch Bridge has now been attacked again, and the Ukrainians are just running victory laps on trying to conduct as many acts of embarrassments on the Russian government as they can. Not only that, the entirety of Crimea also came under drone attack at the exact same time that the explosions were happening on the Crimean Bridge, because Crimean Telegram channels are already reporting explosions in Feodosia and air defense activity at the Belbek Air Base. That is quite a significant swath of territory inside of Crimea. Feodosia is all the way down here, and we were able to see in the past that a Rapucha-class landing ship was sank at this exact area of the port from one of those Ukrainian drone attacks. Not only that, the Belbek Air Base is actually just north of Sevastopol, and you can actually see it right here. So the fact that they're saying that there are air attacks and air defense ongoing along with explosions at Belbek near Sevastopol and Feodosia near to the area of the Kerch Strait, or getting somewhat closer to it, it's showing that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct a drone attack that consisted of the entirety of the size of Crimea itself and not just a limited area. Once again, showing that the armed forces of Ukraine are conducting a largely coordinated campaign against the area of Crimea to be able to try and weaken the Russian defensive forces' strength, and also to be able to try and destroy their logistical abilities through the Kerch Bridge. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear some other major news inside the area of the Russian Federation in Nizhny Novgorod, specifically in the town just north of the main city of Nizhny Novgorod, Zvolsky. We were able to see that a major explosion and fire has broken out at the Zolski motor plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region, and we actually were able to get several videos of this right here.
Короче, вон изнутри все горит, сверху все еще полыхает. Пацаны, ЗМЗ все, горим. Ебануться. Дымит прям люто, на Дзержинского уже попахивает даже. Вот, въезд первый.
The phone notifications that guy was getting in the middle of the video were probably telling him not to come to work tomorrow because his workstation had been burned to the ground. But we were able to see the fire continuing to burn on top of the Zvolsky motor plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region. And as far as we were able to geolocate, the exact location of that motor plant inside the city is right here. This appears, and it actually says it right there, to be the Zvolsky motor factory, and it appears to be a part of the larger Zvolsky Motor Company, which has absolutely massive production facilities in the city of Tolyatti. This is not the largest factory that the Zvolsky motor plant has in the entirety of the Russian Federation. The largest one is actually right here. That is the Zvolsky motor factory in Tolyatti. The thing is absolutely massive, and it's absolutely insane how big the thing is. If you look at it from end to end, just really quickly to show you all this here, because this is something that blew me away while I was trying to find information, the factory complex is 3 miles wide, and the largest production hall that they have at this factory in Tolyatti is a whole whopping 2 miles in length. I would say this is actually beating out the Gigafactory in size. I didn't even know that a factory like this existed in the Russian Federation right next to all of these small commie houses off in the distance. But crazily enough, in Tolyatti, just a little bit south on the Volga River from Nizhny Novgorod, which is up here, is the largest of the Zvolsky motor plants in the entirety of the Russian Federation. Nevertheless, while this is not the largest, this will be a significant hit. This company produces a decent amount of motors that are not only used in Russian civilian use, it is also used in Russian military purposes as well, meaning that a hit on this factory and the damage to it could end up causing a great stoppage in the production abilities of the Russian Federation's motorized vehicles, and allow for the state of Ukraine to continue to ensure that the Russian Federation's logistical abilities continue to stay at a fairly low level and hardly organized at all due to a lack of motor vehicles. Outside of that, we also were able to hear that the armed forces of Ukraine were able to conclude their attack onto the main Russian airfields through Operation Spiderweb, and according to the Ukrainian General Staff, after processing additional information from various sources and verifying it, which took some time, we report that Russia's total losses amounted to 41 military aircraft. This is losses. These are not totally destroyed aircraft. And I want to make sure to make that difference clear, because there are also different reports coming out from the U.S. intelligence saying that only 20 aircraft or 21 aircraft were destroyed over the course of the attack. There were a large amount of Russian bombers that were completely destroyed, and we are able to confirm that because we were able to get satellite footage out of the area of the, I believe this would be, I want to make sure that we get the name correct because I put it down here on the map. Dang, where in the world is it? Good lord, I don't have the name for the airbase on this map. It's the one in Irkutsk that was attacked during the last air raids, but from what we were able to tell, we did have satellite footage, and I want to make sure that we get that here, and let's see. Here we go. I believe this is it. And you can see right here that some of the Russian bombers were completely destroyed. You can actually see even by the satellite footage that they were burned quite literally to cinders, including this Tu-22M3. This Tu-95, however, does have an intact airframe, but there was shrapnel damage that was caused to it. But nevertheless, damage that significant usually is going to knock an airframe out of action for an incredibly long time, or possibly even permanently. Meaning that while the Ukrainians may have only been able to destroy about 21 Russian bombers, they were able to knock out about 40, meaning that Russia's losses were actually up near about 40 or 41. It is quite a significant loss and does line up to the fact that around 34% to 35% of the Russian Federation's strategic bomber fleet was lost in a single day from that attack. It is an absolutely shocking one, and it is continuing to show us that drone warfare is the future of all warfare around the world, as one is able to conduct extremely effective surprise attacks on their enemy with hardly any warning or hardly any reaction time, with just a couple of $1,000s being put into the entire operation, which is probably the most insane part about it. While the Russian Federation is continuing to reel with this, we have been able to hear that the commander of the Russian Air Force also fell out of a window today. Not really sure if that has to do with the whole failure of the defense of the air bases, but the Lieutenant General of the Russian Air Force, Sergei Kubias, who is the commander of the Russian Air Force, accidentally fell out of a window today and died. Everyone knows that means he was off by the Russian government. So apparently they viewed the attack on the airfields throughout Russia to be such a serious breach of Russian security concerns, they actually went and killed the Air Force commander within the next day. Within the next 2 days, actually. It's 2 days from then. But it's an absolutely crazy thing to see that he ended up dying 48 hours after the attack was conducted and successful. Apparently, in Russia, if you end up suffering from a surprise attack that nobody knew of or was expecting, you get thrown out of a window as your reward for not seeing that coming. Once again, really rewarding people for becoming commanders of different forces inside the Russian Federation. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that Ukrainian intelligence is now accusing the People's Republic of China of directly supplying Russia with the ability to wage war, as according to Ukraine, China is supplying military equipment to 20 Russian defense plants, according to the intelligence chief of Ukraine, effectively backing the war effort against the state of Ukraine. The Ukrainians have started to take a less friendly position to the People's Republic of China and trying to find common ground with them, and have openly become more hostile in their intelligence reports and information, once again starting to show that the People's Republic of China is working against collective Western interest wherever they can around the globe, and are continuing to try and destroy anything that may be furthering Western interest, including the Ukraine war and its possible outcome in favor of Ukraine and largely the West at large. It is showing us once again that the People's Republic of China is not as nice and benevolent as they seem. And while they've been calling for peace publicly, quietly in the background, they've been continuing to make sure that the Russians have every single instrument of war necessary to be able to continue on the war effort. Outside of that and inside of Ukraine, we have also been able to hear near to the front lines that the Russian Federation has been running out of SPGs so significantly that we're now actually seeing Koksan SPGs provided by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, also called by many North Korea, throughout the entirety of the Ukrainian front lines. These SPGs are ancient and have been used by the Korean People's Army for about 55 years, as well as the armies of Saddam's Iraq during the Gulf War in 1991, and even by then they were considered to be wildly obsolete. The fact that the Russians are using such an SPG are starting to show us that they are running out of their own homegrown SPG variants, such as the 2S1 Gadzivka, the 2S3 Akitsia, the Mista S, the Mista B, or any other form of SPG that they have. It seems as though they have almost completely run out, and they're now relying entirely on North Korean stockpiles of SPGs, which are continuously being funneled into the Russian Federation to be able to try and keep up their volume of artillery fire on a day-to-day basis. This is actually making it a lot more clear, at least from a logistical standpoint, that the real targets to attack on the front lines are not ammunition depots and storages. Actually, it appears that artillery pieces themselves should be prioritized. While the Russians may be able to produce and fire around 50,000 artillery shells per day, it does appear that they are running out of artillery guns to be able to fire those shells. And if those guns are targeted and destroyed, we could see that while the Russians do have a massive volume of artillery shells, they may not have any guns to fire them with, effectively lowering the rate of fires by the Russian Federation every single day without actually having to destroy the artillery ammunition factories or the ammunition depots near to the front lines themselves, which can end up being a bit difficult in the long run. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear of a massive explosion occurring in Pavlohrad inside of Ukraine, and it appears that it may have been a possible Oreshnik IRBM strike by the Russian Federation. Once again, we have not been able to get any picture or video evidence either by the Ukrainians or any statements from the Russians to confirm that an IRBM was used on Pavlohrad, but it does appear that a significant explosion large enough did occur inside the city that many people are starting to wonder or see or believe that it may have actually been an Oreshnik IRBM that was fired at the city. If it was, and we are able to get enough confirmation for that, we will be making sure to get that out on tonight's nightly news stream and to tell you all about exactly what was going on out there. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear that Zelensky has been invited to the NATO Summit, as the Secretary General Mark Rutte formally invited Zelensky to the NATO Summit against the U.S. wishes. It does appear that the whole of NATO wants to continue to support and host Zelensky at the NATO summits, much like they have been for years, although the United States of America isn't really wanting to at this point. We'll have to wait and see how this goes, at least with the internal politics of how NATO operates, because generally this would be considered to be a slight rift inside of NATO. Nevertheless, I hope that we'll be able to see Zelensky at the NATO summit, because it's quite clear that Ukrainian interests are well within Western interest at large as well. Meanwhile, inside of Iran, we have also been able to hear that the United States of America has shifted its policy, as the president is now saying that he will not allow any enrichment of uranium by the Islamic Republic of Iran. I would say that that's actually the smart move to make, instead of trying to negotiate with them and just believe that if they have the enrichment abilities, they're not going to enrich to a certain grade. It would be better just to tell them that they're not going to have any enrichment abilities at all, and they can either take it or leave it, or we're going to come in and we're going to take care of the problem. That seems to be the best approach, and it does appear that the United States is starting to take a hardline approach, almost akin to an ultimatum. But once again, ultimatums only work if we follow through, and you cannot make an ultimatum and then back out. If we are saying that they will not have any enrichment abilities, they can either agree to not have any enrichment abilities, or we can go in and we can stop them from having any enrichment abilities. There is no choice in the matter for the Islamic Republic of Iran at that point. So if the United States says this, and then we go right back into negotiations, then we're talking about what percentage they can enrich the uranium to, it's going to look like we chickened out, and it's not going to look good for us on a foreign policy world stage sort of a deal. Beyond that, however, it does appear that the negotiations are still ongoing, at least for now, although this is the new U.S. demand, and I have a feeling that this brand new U.S. demand will most likely be leading or resulting in the complete collapse of U.S.-Iranian nuclear talks, and most likely allow the Israelis to move forward with their own attack plans against the Islamic Republic of Iran. But nevertheless, that is all of the major news that we have today. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed this video up until this point, please make sure to let us know in the comments section below by putting Kerch in the comments section. That is Kerch. That would be Kilo, Echo, Romeo, Charlie, Hotel. Make sure to put that in the comment section below, so that way we know that you made it to this point in the video. We absolutely love to know that people are enjoying this video up until the very end, and y'all putting the comments down there like that lets us know that you made it to the very end because you heard us say that, and then you threw it on down in the comments section. Nevertheless, we thank every single one of y'all so much once again for y'all's time and enjoying the channel. If y'all would like to like, comment, and subscribe, we'd love to have y'all here. And if you would also like to support Patreon, the link is in the description below, we would be massively appreciative. The folks on Patreon help us to make this channel possible each and every single day, and help us to be able to do this as our full-time job. And so we got to give a massive thanks to them, and we've got to give a massive thanks to everyone else who's going to be joining our Patreon, because all of you folks continue to make this channel a possibility. And so with that, I will see you all in the next one. Thank you all once again, and take care.